Word up, homeboy, homegirl, home they, them, and empty homes. It is the Jim, the Phil, and, well, how about that? The you. Welcome in. Thank you for joining us. You may recall from our last meeting that I was discussing the first 5 albums of Cannibal Corpse and Deicide. If you don't remember that, then the video is up on my channel. Pause this and watch it. Do that. Do just that. Do nothing but that, and don't stop until it's done. I'll wait. Good. Now, let's get into today's topic. I kind of want to just break the flow a little bit here and discuss a few albums that maybe are not totally tangential to metal, but could be made so by virtue of me inventing it on the fly, huh? A side series. I got a couple of side series I'm planning in the works here. Well, I don't want to tease them out in case they don't pan out, but I'll tell you that this one we could do, if I don't burn all of my material here. Nathan Burke had a column in the Metal Maniacs once upon a time. It might have run a couple of times, but he did a feature at least once with it, and it was called Accidentally Goat, wherein he described several totally non-black metal albums in ways that he related them to black metal and how he appreciated them through a black metal filter. And I just thought that was the most amazingly genius concept. And I filed it away because I was like, I will make sure to steal that, or just steal it and give actual proper credit. Nathan Burke, I don't know what he's doing quite at the moment, but you may know his work from Metal Maniacs, from Zero Tolerance. I've heard he writes blurbs for Hell's Headbangers and possibly other labels, and that guy. Zero Tolerance, did I mention that one? That was, I really liked the contents of the zine, but the visual aesthetic was a real punisher. I've seldom seen a magazine I wanted so badly to read and simultaneously found so challenging to read. That was a fucking black metal ass zine. Like, you gotta be dedicated to like get anything out of that one, you know? Anyway, I'm gonna go through my assortment of non-metal CDs and see if I can summon forth anything that is accidentally goat. Let's start with, well, here, look at this on page 1. So, I'm going to give a quick little backstory on my experience with metal and some of the experience that I've heard others relate with. Specifically, my good friend Big D. Pardon we don't have a cough button here, so you get to see when I blow my nose. Big D and I listen to music, I think, in fundamentally different ways, because one point where we just don't see on the same level, or where we don't hear on the same level, is if it's got proper distortion, proper production, he's in for it. Whereas to me, I'm hearing much more for the attack. I'd be like, no amount of studio trickery to me can disguise how hard you're hitting your instrument. So if you're not going at it like Bob Vinya from Immolation, then I may or may not be quite as interested. And there's exceptions to that rule. Akakaki plays with a lot of finesse, and Gene and Pete, of course, don't necessarily, but John Longstreth plays with a lot of finesse, and I do love that Angel Corpse. So, I mean, there are ways around the rule, but on balance, I favor an untriggered drum and a very harshly strummed guitar, and things of that sort in my music, because, yeah, I'd be like, I'm hearing the attack. whereas someone else is hearing the production value. And I'm not trying to say that someone else's approach to it is less valid than my own, but that is my perspective filter. And so with that in mind, and I started out in death metal, very impressed with technical riffs and things of that sort, and that kind of faded out over a while. I might have mentioned that in something we actually did post. Arch Enemy did that to me. Just, it seemed like too much of a cartoon, and so I started to favor things more in the order of monotony, poor production, punishing sound. There was always an element of it. When Ulver dropped Metamorphosis, I went out and bought it, and I said, this is epic genius. Here is a band that is so true and so cult, they punish you for enjoying their music. They're like, no, sorry bro, the only fans of Ulver can in fact be members of Ulver. I loved it as an artistic statement. Reviewing that in a moment, I would have given that a 1 to 2 for the music and an absolute 10 for the aesthetic on every level. Because the packaging I really like too, but just the statement of it was absolute 10 of 10. And then the music's actually grown on me. The first couple songs in particular, it gets really boring after a while. But it's in my rate of 5 a 10 for the music by now. I enjoy the first half. But on the note of punishing black metal that is sparse, strident, and just does not give a fuck about you, just a CD that I happen to have handy is Antony and the Johnsons. This one is I Am a Bird Now, and I do heartily recommend it if you ever just are not feeling a fan of yourself and need to do some quick audio self-flagellation, or some in-depth audio flagellation, because really the trick with it is to just let it go on, and then it'll grow on you. Accidentally Goat or Intentionally Goat, Big Black. And I mean, I was always very shy of hipster stuff. It is a fact that Steve Albini produced the only Nirvana album I really like. But I always thought that album was as much a function of Courtney Love as of Steve Albini. Well, it turned out, and we'll come back to it later, Steve Albini's a producer very conducive to a metal fan's ear, or at least the way I interpret metal, because there is just some of that real punishing element, some of that doesn't give a fuck about you energy. And I think that probably is a statement that people would associate to a Steve Albini. But yeah, Big Black, when I first heard it, I found it quite revelatory. And it took me a long time, because there was such hipster associations, where I'd be like, oh, I bet I couldn't enjoy that. No one ever just said, yeah, it sounds like a clanking machine. Otherwise I would have been like, oh, snaps, I'll listen to that. Someone is not going to appreciate this fact that these are slotted right next to each other, and I better name it would be Kathleen Hanna. I do keep right next to Big Black, songs about Bikini Kill, and this is Imagine If Crass Was All Women, and that's what that is. The first 2 Bikini Kill records. If you, like myself, heard the name and had the associations, oh, Riot Girl, and shied away on account of that, then we were wrong to do it. I assume that any later output is probably veering more towards stuff where I'm like, a little less my cup of tea. But early Bikini Kill is very jarring and dissonant, and if you dig Big Black, or if you dig Crass especially, you should probably not miss out on that one. Christian Death is almost invariably Accidentally Goat. Only Theater of Pain is, in my mind, a almost exact lighter counterpart. It's like if you gave AI Only Theater of Pain and said, make this a heavy metal album, it would just give you into the pandemonium. They complement each other perfectly. But Ashes is, to my mind, the most goat of the death. Actually, no, I'm going to gainsay that. Ashes is merely the most underrated. Catastrophe Ballet is the most accidentally goat Christian death album. And Birk did summon forth Sex, Drugs, and Jesus Christ. And that is a worthy album. But I think Catastrophe Ballet does not even realize it's a black metal album, simply because it doesn't sound like one. But it absolutely is a fucking black metal album. On the topic of stark, strident, and punishing, Coco Rosie, two sisters that, in terms of hipsterness, yeah, I think I'd probably not want to necessarily be at that concert, but their first album only is so minimal and quirked out and just off-kilter that I would dare call it accidentally goat. And then just like other woman-centered acts, Azure and Lord, their first minimal album was super charming, and then, yeah, it lost my ear. We're just taking a quick detour from the Accidentally Goats to point out another fun juxtaposition. You know that Cracker album, Kerosene Hat, or at least the Cracker song that you've probably heard, whichever one it is, they're both on this album, Kerosene Hat. And I generally don't like blues music at all, but I quite do favor the album Kerosene Hat, and I stack it right next to a Crass album. And that's kind of an interesting juxtaposition. Although, I bet David Lowery would appreciate that fact a lot more than Kathleen Hanna would appreciate being sat next to Steve Albini. Current 93 is absolutely accidental goat. I call out the mystic body of Christ in Chorazam over Dog's Blood Rising as especially cult, but Dog's Blood Rising is the better of those earlier full lengths. All Death in June is accidentally goat, but I think the most accidental or the most goat would be Brown Book. I first heard of Death in June because of Nathan Burke talking about them, and I went out and bought Rule of Thirds, and I was like, there's something really off-putting about this otherwise sedate and soothing album, and just, it was so weird and jarring that I went out and bought all the other Death in June albums I could find, and I just intuited over a short period of time, like, just little things like, is this guy gay? Is this guy a Nazi? Like, what's going on with this whole thing? And essentially, without the benefit of the internet, I pretty much pulled out the entire Death in June canon without, or aesthetic without, just from listening to it. So if you think that he's being especially oblique with whatever, probably not. An accidental goat album, in terms of just straight up, will kill your ass dead. 187. Regrettably, failed to kill Dr. Dre. Actually, I'm not going to say that's regrettable. Dr. Dre should live and be well, but metaphorically, it did kind of murder his ass. I could never take Dr. Dre seriously after that. Theatus. This is not the penultimate album, or even the album after that, but the first one, at least, to get dropped on a big label, Gash, and it is less dissonant and underground and lo-fi than everything else he had done up to previous that, but it very nicely encapsulates song structure and listenable songs with really off-putting and unnerving vibe. Easily out of like the kind of music that my much hipper elder brother Bern would listen to, and he did not listen to Fetus, but of that world when he was like listening to more like in the alternative scene and I was more in the metal scene, that was the one where I was like, oh man, this is the kind of stuff that it's got the proper aesthetic. It doesn't translate enough to metal, honestly, even. That's why I kind of ended up going over towards black metal from the death metal. We mentioned the Stevester. If you do not know the album Rid of Me by PJ Harvey, as in if you do not know it intimately, you might want to correct that. If you know the song 50-Foot Queenie, imagine that 15 times over. And it is that good. There is not another PJ Harvey album that sounds like it. And in fact, there is not another album, to my knowledge, that sounds quite like it. Just a wispy woman of a singer-songwriter crossing paths with Steve Albini and dropping a fucking banger of a goat-ass record. And we want to be clear on our terms here. I'm not using goat like a lot of people do, like from the LL Cool J variation. I mean straight up like, you know, the fucking goats. The Fago bangers. Not necessarily accidentally goat, but I like Hole more than Nirvana. I really do. The only Nirvana album I like is the one where he was already banging with Courtney Love. This isn't necessarily accidentally goat, but the misanthropy is tangential enough. And this is an underrated gem, or an underappreciated gem. King Missile, Happy Hour. Is this backwards? Yeah, it's Happy Hour, King Missile. It's probably reflecting right at you. And it is the album with that song Detachable Penis. And I could just do a whole rant on this one. Somebody really did a criminal deed on this band by making Detachable Penis the single on that album, because forever after they are the novelty band with the novelty song, and that is a very complete album with a lot of very catchy and surprisingly literate songs. And the band is ever only known for Detachable Penis, and you can see the strain it had on the band, because this band broke up by the time of the third album, and it was just the singer left with a whole new assortment of musicians, and he couldn't sustain it. But Happy Hour is it's lightning in a bottle. It is a magical album. And I would say that Detachable Penis is actually the least song on the album, but when you listen to the album, it's sequenced so well that Detachable Penis, if you were like, no, that's a dumb, irritating song, no, it's really good in the context of the album. And the album is really good aside from that song. So yeah, you got a tip today. Take that one to the bank, or better yet, take it to your YouTube thing immediately after we're done here, and then yeah, do just that, do nothing but that, and don't stop before you finish. I have here, I don't know if you can call it accidentally goat. This was kind of a joke because it was passed off to me by a lesbian. But the deal was like, oh look, there's corpse paint on the cover. And this is Indigo Girls, Rites of Passage. This is a very good album, and I don't know that you could necessarily file it in with accidentally goat, but it's harsh, it's punishing, it's strident. It's a very challenging listen, in addition to like having a lot of like really listenable, radio-friendly pop hooks also on it. But yeah, and that is as much a function of the time, because there is just a feature where like gay was a whole different experience 25 and 30 years ago and 35 years ago, and so it probably hits a lot different to a younger person, but it hits. I would recommend that album, if not necessarily just any Indigo Girls album specifically. And But on that note, we will have to not leave off with Sinead O'Connor. Sinead O'Connor is definitely in that file of accidentally goat, punishing music. It is, you can do that one super quick. Go check out the song Just Like You Said It Would Be. And it's like, you'll probably get it in a search bar like that, but it's going to have the Prince style with letters for full words and that 80s vibe. And listen to that entire song. You have to listen all the way through. But at the end of the song, you are going to say to yourself, I see why the black metal dude is telling me to listen to this song. And if you don't thank me for it, that's on you. You were cultured for it. And that's about, I think, the end of our accidental goat thing. I do have filth up in here, but we all know that one, right? Like, this is in the big black category. If you do not know, or if you know Swans primarily from anything after that first couple albums, make sure to get those first couple albums, because that's what a lot more metal should sound like. Did we discuss the Lady Act, the Lord, the Coco Rosie, etc.? You don't need that much. Like, all you really need is something that sounds good, and just let it ride, right? Roll with it. Yeah, I think that's about the, that's about where we can leave off here. We're at 20 minutes, are we? Cool. I'll show you a quick bonus one here. California mission music. I love Gregorian chant music. Specifically, generally, I like like the actual monk singing. This is male and female vocals, but California Mission by the John Biggs Consort, and so it ties back theoretically to an era when California was known more for missions than for being a state of California. And Julie and I one time listened to it, and she said, "This music makes me feel like I'm burning in hell." And I said, "That's why I love it." And it was, maybe that's like the punishment she saw in like what I heard in all those other things, but I just thought that was a really curious, but also a really charming way to describe it. So yeah, John Biggs Consort, California Mission music. It made Julie feel like she was burning in hell. And that's the note we're going to end on. You just got some accidental goat and a little culture, and we just spent 20 minutes of our day together. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too, but again, if not, that's kind of on you. I got paid for it. You got paid too, right? Like, make sure, go find Phil. Make sure to get your paycheck, bro. Don't leave money on the table. I'm just saying. Anyway, Jim Dempsey, wrapping it up. Have a good remainder of your life, and make sure to click on my next video. Do just that. Do nothing but that. Don't stop until it's done. Here it comes now. Somewhere down there. And, dipping.